Oh, hi, Taylor.
Hi. Like that I didn't just see you 10 seconds ago, but I did just notice that you're fully decked out in kit in the little atrium swag. And I
Kit.
feel, yeah,
Kit.
the
I have Kit.
kit.
Yeah,
I'm so
I
jealous.
know. My buddy who's a former CRO at Optimizely, and now he leads like essentially sales support for Redpoint Ventures. I showed up to like drinks with him looking like this, and he was like, "You look like a NASCAR, bro." And I was like, "Really? Okay, fine.
Hey,
Not
but
wrong."
okay, our theme for today is not too fast or furious. Driving cars, racing cars.
Oh, there you
Other
go. Zoom, zoom. Don't want to
zoom
spin.
zoom.
Don't want to spin out.
I love it. I'm going to share the first 3 slides, Pete, so I'll take it from here. We are so excited to have you all for our little NASCAR, I guess, Fast and Furious race event today to talk about ramping for success with our very own decked out Pete Kazanjy. I'm pointing to you like you're right next to me, Pete. Today's event is hosted by the team at Modern Sales Pros. And if you're not familiar, Modern Sales Pros is the world's largest, of course, revenue leadership community for those in sales management, sales and rep ops, development, all of those things, all of our supporting disciplines. And our mission is to create an environment for our 20,000 and growing members to answer questions they might struggle to answer on their own, to look around corners they might not even know are there. And we do that through great live sessions like the one you're at today, hopefully in the future in-person events, and at our April summit happening April 12th through 14th. Just
Ooh,
drop the link so you can get registered. I know, very excited.
super
Some quick
exciting.
Yes. Some quick housekeeping notes on my end. Yes, this is being recorded. We would not let this amazing content just go out into the ether. We will send out the recording so you can share it with your best friend, your colleague, your grandma, whoever's going to benefit from this stuff. And two,
Grandma ramping a bunch of AEs. You got
yeah,
she's
ideally, right?
you gotta enable her.
You're
She's
going
gotta
to
know.
data-driven grandma. Okay.
Data driven grandma.
And then the second thing, of course, is please use the Q&A. Ask Pete all of your most pressing questions on ramping, maybe like how to help your grandma. I don't know, but we love for this to be really interactive. Use that chat feature. Use whatever you'd like. And I know we're not going too fast or furious with our ramping today, but I think Vin Diesel would be really proud that we're keeping this event in the family. And of course, I mean the MSP family. The founder of MSP and parent company Atrium is sponsoring this event today. So I'm going to let him take it from here. If you liked my joke, put a star emoji in the chat. If you hated it, put a tomato emoji. And I will see
Oh
you
my
soon.
God. I gotta find my stars. Where are the emojis? Oh my God. It
All
was
right,
so good.
take it
Are
away.
you
See you
Oh my
soon.
God, I gotta find my star
Oh wait, I'll
emoji.
wait for my star before I leave.
I'm looking for it in the emojis. I'm not finding it. I searched for a star here. I'm gonna do a heart. But oh my
Love
God.
it.
Are you more of a Vin Diesel fan or more of a The Rock fan
Oh,
in
The
Fast and
Rock.
Furious?
The Rock
I
for
know.
sure. Yeah.
Me too. I feel like The Rock is like this, like the second iteration of Vin Diesel, and he kind of
Yes.
like he had second mover advantage, so he kind of like caught up and like passed him, right?
Yes.
Nope.
Love
I
it.
mean, no shade against Vin Diesel, like Vin Diesel, but The Rock is like next level.
Yes.
Okay, super rad, Taylor. Thank you very very mucho. I am super pumped to do this session today because it's new. I know everyone in the chat is like star, star, star. Actually, I should put a tomato in there just to mess with Taylor. No, 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 I'm not going to. All of her jokes were like super awesome. I am super pumped to do the content here. Wow, that was crazy. I'm super pumped to do this content here today because it's new. It's new for me. This isn't a presentation that I've given before. It's a topic that's like super near and dear to my heart, but it's new content. So unfortunately you guys are having it workshopped on you. So I'm really looking forward to your feedback, but hopefully you'll get something good out of it. As Taylor was saying, my name is Pete Kazanjy. I'm one of the founders of Atrium. We make data-driven sales management software that helps AE, SDR, AM, CSM managers use data and metrics to improve rep and team performance. A little bit of background on me. That's a picture of me about 6 or 7 years ago when I had more hair. But the big thing is like, so why should you care about what I have to say? I am the founder of Atrium. We do make data-driven sales management software. So literally all we think about is how using data to improve rep and team performance and help managers be better managers. And part of that is ramping. The good news is outside of that, I do a bunch of other stuff that revolves around sales excellence. I am the founder of Modern Sales Pros. You guys are familiar with MSB. It's pretty rad, in my humble opinion, even though it's much bigger than me at this point. And then I authored a book on startup sales called Founding Sales. That's all about it's all about sales excellence. And so before all of that, I actually started a previous software company called Talent Bin, that was a recruiting software company that was acquired by Monster Worldwide in 2014. And so during that, I kind of went from being a business generalist founder at the beginning of Talent Bin to our first seller, our first sales leader, or first sales manager, first sales leader. And so like that's kind of how I, got initially hipped to data-driven sales management, and how data and operational excellence in sales was is something that is so impactful. So like I think a lot about sales and sales excellence, and of course ramping is one of those kind of key components of all that. So I'm really excited for us to talk about that today. So what we can do is we can start kind of at the beginning, and we can talk about why is bad onboarding and ramping bad, right? Why is it bad? Aside from, it's nice to enable people, it's nice for people to have success, but what are the business implications? What are the negative impacts associated with this? And so I think the challenge is there is that really what it kind of comes down to is you can just miss your bookings goals. Like in sales organizations, what it is that we're seeking to do is drive high growth of revenue. And the way that we do that is by hiring more account executives and getting them on board and getting them successful and hooking them up to lead feeds and having them turn leads into quotes into cash, right? And so if we don't get people ramping, that doesn't happen. And if that doesn't happen, our ARR doesn't grow. We're not able to raise our next round of funding. We're not able to, be performant as a public company, et cetera. There's like all sorts of nasty things, because ultimately what happens is AEs or AMs, like sellers, ramped sellers are the fundamental unit of revenue production in an organization. So bringing them on board and getting them up to success is kind of the critical thing. And so when you think about like the good things that can come out of this, what you want to have there is you want to have people who get on board, who get to success quickly, you can train them up, and then importantly, the leading indicators of their performance are tracking towards success. Okay. Some of the things that I've that cover some of these topics that you might be interested in to kind of help enable this these are some of my favorite books that I've read recently on sales management, data-driven sales management. One is on coaching. It's called 5 Secrets of a Sales Coach. It's written by Corey Bray and Hillman Story. It's absolutely fantastic. It's written as a novel, which makes it like really fast reading. It's kind of fun, but what's in it is it's all about coaching behavior, which is really important in ramping, because what you're doing in ramping, which we'll talk about here in a second, is like you're looking at leading indicators of success and you're like tuning, right? And the way that you tune is through coaching. You see something that's going on, and then you move, you see something that looks like it's potentially problematic, and then you change behavior in order to fix that problem. So 5 Secrets of Sales Coach is really great for that. Crushing Quota by Michelle Vazana and Jason Jordan is also on sales management, but it's more of like an academic approach, kind of like more of a textbook. These are the people who wrote Cracking the Sales Management Code. Cracking the Sales Management Code, of course, is focused 100% on like data-driven metrics, and then or data-driven sales metrics, and Crushing Quota is instead focused on kind of like the coaching, the application of that, right? Like sales management. And the Qualified Sales Leader is just like a really amazing page turner by John McMahon, who's one of the founders of MedPick. He was the CRO at PTC, et cetera. So if you guys are interested in grabbing these books, we just dropped a link in the chat there. You're welcome to sign up for them. We'll also send you a Yeti, a Coffee is for Closers Yeti mug as well. Cool. And so importantly, what we're going to be talking about today is we're not going to be talking about like onboarding training content. Like that's an important topic. And no shade on that, but what we're going to be talking about is using data to ensure ramping success. So if you want to talk about good onboarding and kind of the content associated with that, good content approaches, this session is not going to be on this. This session is about using data to make sure that we're driving the success of ramp. So and so I think really the biggest thing that drives issues and makes ramp hard is what we have kind of termed the new rep ramp productivity offset, right? So what the heck is that? Well, it all kind of comes down to time. And so time is oftentimes something like is hard for us as humans to kind of like think about conceptually. But when you have a rep or a set of reps that are ramping, there's actually a bunch of time offsets. And so if you think about this, like this is the arrow of time right here. I guess we need to put a little arrow here at the bottom. And so if you think about how a rep is kind of goes through their onboarding process, there's a couple of different steps. First, we're going to be training them. Like they're not going to be taking leads or taking ops immediately off the VAT, right? So first, we're going to be training them. And so then, and that's going to take a certain amount of time. That might take a few weeks if it's an SDR. That might take a month or maybe a month and a half if it's an account executive, depending on how complicated your sale is. So then, once that person is successful in that training, then they enter a period of what we like to call pipe build. What they're doing is now they're starting to have new opportunities that are coming into their pipe. Maybe they're having first meetings, or like they're being given leads. If it's an SDR, they're being given new accounts and new contacts to go after and engage. We're primarily going to be talking about this in the context of account executives here and sellers, but same concepts apply to SDRs. It's usually just a little bit more compressed. And so you enter this period of pipe build. And so this is where things kind of get a little sketchy, because depending on how long your deal cycle is, and so in this visualization here, we're saying, hey, there's an example 60-day sales cycle, right? Well, the soonest you could possibly close a deal after that initial, like you start taking meetings, is probably around 60 days, right? I mean, maybe you get lucky and you close a a lucky deal, right? But the reality is that like it's called your average deal cycle for a reason. Like on average, deals are going to show up some time period after first meeting. So whether it's 60 days or longer sales cycle, 90 days, 120 days, whatever. And so as you're building pipe, right, you're not going to see deals until you hit that deal cycle. And then moreover, early on, most account executives are probably not going to be as good at selling, good at disco, good at prezo, and what have you. And so probably their initial win rates or like progressions are going to be a little bit lighter as well. So it's unlikely until you're going to see that first deal, that second deal, what have you, for at least a deal cycle or even more, right? And so then what you've got is you have a time of partial productivity, where essentially the person is closing some deals, but they're not at full productivity, where they're closing the number of deals per month or per quarter that you would expect at full clip. And then you've got full productivity. And so like these are the stages. And so the challenge is that when you're instrumenting the success of somebody's ramp, this time offset behavior here, this time offset reality, makes it very difficult to make judgments or pass judgment on the like how well that ramp is going if you are only looking at lagging indicators. So for instance, if you are waiting to pass judgment on the productivity, or sorry, on the success of a rep's ramp until they're at full productivity. That's this entire offset from their day of hire over here until you can pass that judgment. And so that's like kind of real, as a sales manager or a leader, that's like a really long time to be holding your breath to see if this person is going to get to success, right? And we'll talk about some of the negative implications associated with that approach. So sometimes what organizations do is they say, hey, you know what? We're not going to look at time to full productivity, right? Because that's too fraught. That's too much of a time offset there. Instead, what we're going to do is we're going to look at the first deal. Like when they close their first deal, that's going to be the point at which we say, hey, you know what? This person looks like they're tracking towards success. We're good to go here. Right? And so the challenge with this is kind of twofold. One is you still miss all of this, right? You still miss this entire period right here. And this is especially problematic in longer sales cycles, 90-day, 120-day, or what have you, where if you are waiting for that first deal in order to pronounce success, you may have challenges, right? It's still like a substantial offset. The other problem too is that a first deal can just be lucky. Right? I mean, this is sales, right? Like you can get some bluebird that just shows up and like buys, right? Or it's like, a customer who was previously at another company and, they jump out, they're a really happy customer, the big champion, they jump over another company, gets round robin to the new rep, boom, one call close. Oh, that's magic. All right, well, he must be magic. No, actually it was like the lead was magic. Right? And so then if you declare victory at that point, well, it's potentially a problem, right? And so the right approach, or at least what I'm gonna hope to show you here in this presentation, is that the right approach is to get even further ahead and to be looking at leading indicators in ramp in order to ensure that somebody is getting to full success. And we're going to kind of go through here. And so I know that I've kind of been hanging out on this slide for a hot second here, but I really, really wanted to characterize to folks why ramping is so hard to instrument, and it's because of this time offset component here. Wonderful. So let's talk about kind of problem one. Why is full rep productivity certification problematic? And we're going to do it through kind of an example here. And so the reason why full rep productivity certification is a problem is because you never know what's happening with the rep per se if you're not looking at those leading indicators. So here's an example here where we have 3 reps. We're looking at, this is a bookings visualization right here, right, where they're ramping here, and this is a special ramping visualization where here's all of their ramp periods. So month 1, so there's all their start dates, month 1, month 2, month 3, month 4, month 5, month 6. And so if you look at Elsa and Anna, we can kind of see that they've gotten to this ramping. They've started hitting their deals and their bookings here in month 2, month 3, et cetera, et cetera. And so oftentimes this is one of the biggest challenges with full productivity certification is early on, it's too hard to say, oh, this guy's not going to get there, especially because usually what ends up happening is when you have a rep who's struggling, usually what ends up happening is they're not flatlined across the board. They have these glimpses of success, and you kind of see here with Max here, where he's going along, and oh, cool, close some business. Oh, closes some business, right? Up, closes some business. And so it's one of those things where it's varied. If you're only looking at bookings as a lagging indicator and you're waiting to full rep productivity, it's very difficult to pass judgment and be like, oh man, right? This person's never going to make it. We should cut bait here. And so the challenge here, and so instead what you should be doing is you should be looking at leading indicators, right? So, and a really good leading indicator here would be opportunity ownership, right? Is somebody's opportunity ownership coming into band? Now, if in this scenario, an opportunity ownership like pipe build is a great leading indicator to potential booking success, because guess what? If you don't have opportunity ownership and you don't have pipe ownership, probably not going to close any of that, any of that non-existing opportunities or non-existent pipe. Okay. And, but in this case, it's actually even more difficult, right? A little bit more fraud here, because this guy right here, this Max example, who we see is kind of struggling here, well, his opportunity ownership wasn't problematic, right? What we can see here is he's in line because, his SDR, or like, the round robin is feeding him really well, or maybe he's a promoted SDR and, he's doing a good job prospecting, what have you. But then if we jump even further upstream from a leading indicator standpoint and look at a leading indicator to opportunity ownership and opportunity progression, like meetings on calendar, we can actually say, oh, got it. That's the reason why he's struggling, right? Is that he's never gotten to full productivity with respect to customer facing meetings. Like, he's got a bunch of opportunities that are in his pipe, but lo and behold, it's not like he's actually meeting with them, right? So this is the crux of this, right? We can see, oh man, this is the root cause. The reason why things are not closing is, guess what? He's not having sufficient customer facing meetings. And so moreover, if we were paying attention to this, right? So rather than saying, oh, is he going to make it? Is he going to make it here in month 8 or in month 9? What we would have been able to do is in month 2 or month 3, be like, wait a minute, something is totally off here, because this guy's meeting volume is on a monthly basis is half of what his peers are. We need to get ahead of that right now, because if we don't, this is going to be the result, right? And so this is the challenge right here associated with waiting to full productivity on a lagging indicator like bookings or wins to declare victory, right? Like, this is why it's really, really important to be paying attention to those leading indicators, right? So cool. So let's talk about a different approach to ramp management. Let's talk about excuse me. Let's talk about first deal certification. So oftentimes when we talk with customers and we ask them about how they instrument the success of ramps, they'll say, hey, well, what we do is we look for the first like a first deal as a leading indicator. And that's actually, I mean, it's a great leading indicator. It's certainly way better than full productivity certification. Now, the problem with first deal based certifications is kind of twofold. One, you're still on a lag, right? You're still lagged 1 or 2 deal cycles, especially if you have a long deal cycle, off of that pipe build, right? So you still are in a situation where you're like holding your breath, waiting for that first deal to drop, right? The second thing is that you can get a head fake situation. We've actually seen this quite a bit. I actually had a rep in my organization in this situation as well, where again, what you can have is, if you're only looking at bookings or wins, right? In this case, I guess wins, you can see that this rep closed the deal, right? And so if we had at this point said, hey, you know what? All right, victory, this person closed the deal, they're good to go. We don't have to like pay attention to it anymore. They're certified. Well, what we would have missed was this, right? And so this is, a fairly common potential issue with the this is a fairly common issue with this approach, is only paying attention to that first deal and then taking your eye off the ball. And so what's interesting here is, again, if you look at leading indicators in this hypothetical example here, what you can see is that the meeting volume is off, somewhat here. But then moreover, where it really, really, really shows up is in another leading indicator that we like to refer to as stage advancements. And so how many opportunities, how many stages are actually being advanced? Because if you own a bunch of opportunities, but none of them are moving forward to stage 2, stage 3, stage 4, etc., then are they really opportunities? Because they're just hanging out in your pipe, right? And so what you can see here is that if you're paying attention to these leading indicators, in this case for this hypothetical rep, Jane here, what you'll note is that you would have easily seen that this looks really problematic, right? Like the opportunities are not progressing through Jane's pipe, and so guess what? If opportunities don't advance, they don't close. And so that this sort of leading indicator would very easily elucidate that to a manager there. And like I get it, it's super hard because I've had the same situation where like I've literally had this situation. Now the good news is that, you know, unsurprisingly, we're very data driven in how we manage our reps here at Atrium. So we saw the other leading indicators, like a lack of stage advancements. Now that doesn't mean that like I in my head was like, but they closed the deal, like, you know, they must be like, oh no, those stage advancements can't be right. Right, like those opportunity for conversions can't be right, they closed the deal. But ultimately it was right, like I couldn't argue with the data. But even I, like sitting there looking at those leading indicators, was like I was being pulled towards the siren song of like, oh, but they closed the deal, right? Cool. So let's talk about the right way of doing this. And so what the right way to do this is what we like to refer to as data-driven ramp management. And so what we want to do is we want to be paying attention to stuff in here. We want to be paying attention to leading indicators during this pipe build period, right? And not just opportunity ownership and not just pipeline, but also things like customer facing meetings and stage advances and new opportunity inflow. All of those leading indicators to then the intermediary indicators like proposals being sent out, or, you know, down funnel stage advances, going all the way to our lagging indicators, which would be things like wins, bookings, et cetera, et cetera. And so I'm going to kind of show you guys what this looks like here as an example. So instead of looking at the lagging indicators, we're going to start with the leading indicators, right? Yeah, how are they doing in terms of bookings? I don't care. It's month 2. How could I possibly care about what their bookings look like, right? Instead, what I'm going to look at is what their customer-facing meeting volume looks like in month 2 and in month 3. Are they having a healthy number of customer-facing meetings? Oh, they are. That makes me feel confident. Is that sufficient? No, it's not sufficient. They can have a bunch of meetings and like not close, but that would be a different problem. But are they going to close a bunch of business without any meetings? No, that is impossible. Right? So it is not a sufficient condition, but it is a necessary condition that these guys are having a bunch of customer facing meetings. So that looks good. I feel good about this. I'm not like, I don't have any alarm bells going off. Okay, well, what about kind of a lagging indicator to customer facing meetings, like the next step? You could be having a bunch of first meetings, but but you're doing a bad job in disco, and someone's like, nobody is, you're not revealing pain or discovering pain to your prospect, and so none of your leads are turning into ops, or none of your ops are going to qualified app. Okay, well, let's look at the opportunity ownership, qualified opportunity ownership. Oh, look, that's coming into band 2. That makes me feel more confident. Is that sufficient? Like, do I know that just because this person owns a bunch of opportunities that they're gonna close business? No, I don't know that, right? But at least I know that they're having a lot of customer facing meetings, and they have a bunch of opportunities being owned. Again, another necessary condition checked off here, where as I'm, you know, bird dogging Norma Jean's ramp here, I can see that she's coming into band okay, right? Okay, well, what about, but as we saw in the previous examples, somebody can have a bunch of opportunity ownership, but if nothing closes, we're still kind of hosed. Well, what if we look at stage advancements? And sure enough, if we look at that and the number of opportunity stages that are being advanced on a monthly basis, cool. What I can see is there is actually a bunch of opportunities that are being advanced. So I know that this rep is having a bunch of customer facing meetings. I know that they're having a bunch of opportunity. They have a bunch of opportunity ownership. They have a bunch of stage reached, right? Sorry, a bunch of stage advancements. I'm feeling very confident about this. Right. Am I feeling 99% confident? No. Right. This is sales, right? What we're trying to do is we're trying to manage and we're trying to run a revenue factory where instead of it being a bunch of machines and a bunch of assembly lines, it's a bunch of humans who are messy. But at least I feel more confident than if I had my eyes closed and I had my fingers in my ears was going la 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 la, right? And then lo and behold, if we look at the actual outputs associated with this, things look great, right? Just not noting something down here, folks. Things look absolutely fantastic. And it's unsurprising because all the leading indicators were dialed in. And then moreover, if for whatever reason we had these conditions where somebody's customer facing meeting volume was there and their opportunity ownership volume was there, but maybe Norma was light in month 2 or month 3 with respect to stage advancements, we could intervene. Right? I, as a manager, would see that. I'd say, "Oh, I know where the problem was. Hey, you're having a lot of meetings. You have a bunch of opportunity ownerships. Why are stages not advancing? Let's go ahead and talk about that, or I'm going to ride along on your calls in order to figure out why things are not progressing because I know that this is the issue here." Or alternatively, I see that stage advancements aren't happening, and there's insufficient customer-facing meetings happening, kind of like back up here with with Jane here, right? Oh man, wouldn't it have been great for us to intervene here or here rather than waiting until we're like, okay, this person's not going to make it, right? And so this is the power associated with paying attention to those leading indicators. Is A, you can feel confident when someone looks like they're coming into band, and then B, if they're not coming into band with respect to those leading indicators, we can jump in and fix it at the place where it matters, right? And so this is why what we like our term data-driven ramp management is the right way to do this, because it allows managers to intervene and change rep behavior rather than waiting until month 6 or 9 or 12 with their eyes closed and their fingers in their ears, hoping against hope that someone's going to work out. We bird dog it the whole time, and when we see something that's off, we intervene. And if it looks like everyone's kicking ass and taking names, well, guess what we should do? We should probably hire more reps. The next ramping class should be double, right? Your founder, right, your CEO or your board is going to be really excited to say hey, you know what? It looks like rather than ramping 2 reps at once, we could probably do 6 because they ramp so successfully. Guess what? That'll make our revenue grow faster. Oh, that's really fantastic. Yeah, it is super fantastic. It's going to help you as a VP of sales or an SDR leader blow out your number, right? So it's in either scenario, whether it's a risk scenario, a risk abatement scenario, or, oh, wow, there's an opportunity for us to pump on the gas here. Doing data-driven ramp management is a far more superior way of doing this. And so unsurprisingly, this is something that we really care about a lot at Atrium. Just a little bit of advertorial for you guys here. The way that we think about how you should approach things is that managers should have a system that helps them use data to monitor, manage, and improve rep performance using data, right? To use data to improve data and metrics to improve rep performance. And so the way that looks is they should have every KPI for the reps in the team. They should have proactive goal tracking, early warning, alerting, and performance issue diagnosis. And what this will do is it will help managers do what we just kind of looked at visually automatically, right? Automatically. And so what Atrium does is it helps sales managers use data to improve team performance, right? And that's something that's really powerful. And we do it with hundreds and hundreds of customers. So we're blessed to have hundreds of customers that we help do exactly these things. So let's go ahead and jump back to our regularly scheduled program here. So cool. Well, what would those leading indicators be, Pete? I'm really glad that you asked, guys, because we can kind of talk about this. So when you think about on a per role basis, we've got inputs, we've got outputs, and we've got efficiency and quality metrics. And these are some examples of these. And so when you think about those inputs, it's not, like it's not just one, as we kind of just went through previously. It can be a set of them. And so you can see, like with account executives, kind of the best example, or the primary example we were talking about here, it would be things like opportunity ownership, pipeline ownership, new opportunity inflow, new pipe inflow, customer facing meetings, and maybe even things like the total number of accounts touched or emails being sent, et cetera, et cetera. That might be a little bit too granular for most account executives, but maybe like, ops touch is probably a good leading indicator. Same with SDRs. If the output that we care about with SDRs is like opportunity creation, the analog to bookings or wins for account executives, well, what are the leading indicators that would indicate that somebody is coming to band from a ramp standpoint? Well, it would probably be the total number of accounts that they're touching or the total number of contacts they're touching. It would be things like activities, like emails and calls are the SDR's version of customer facing meetings. It's like their fundamental unit for the most part of selling behavior, right? But it also might be more leading indicators or like more sophisticated leading indicators as well. Like, cool, I could be touching lots of accounts, but am I touching new accounts? Right? Am I touching our new accounts coming into my SDR pipe? Am I touching new contacts? Or am I just kind of like beating the same dead horses again and again and again? And so these would be great examples of leading indicators that we would want to pay attention to in ramp, because if we know that our SDRs are engaging in a high quantity of high quality activity, eventually those opportunity creations shall come. If we know that our AEs are having a high volume of customer facing meetings, their opportunity ownership is there, those opportunities are advancing, and their stage conversions are going well, the bookings are probably going to come. The wins are probably going to come, right? And so when you think about why ramp potentially is going to fail, like we looked at the top, it can be a variety of kind of issues. It can be whether or not somebody didn't get enough opportunities coming into their pipe. Taking a little screenshot here. It could be that you are lacking those progressions, and then the core activity is not there, or alternatively, the flip side of this is, how do you know a success is there? And you've got your relevant KPIs that are there. You've set goals on it, and you're coaching to success there. And so when you're thinking about those metrics that we should be paying attention to, the thing that you want to look at there is, what are the teams you're going to be going to be instrumenting? So if we're talking about SDRs, what are the set of metrics that we want to be paying attention to there in ramp? If we're talking about AEs, it's going to be a different set of metrics. Then think about, what do they spend their time doing? Let's say we're talking about SDRs again. Is it a call heavy SDR motion? Cool. We would expect them to spend most of their time doing calling. We would measure that. If it is if it's an account executive that is a full cycle account executive that does a lot of their own prospecting. Maybe it's like a Yelp account executive, Yext, single platform, etc. Well, maybe what we would look at there is they should be spending some of their time doing prospecting. They should be spend some of their time doing meetings and things like that, right? And so then we should align our metric selection to that. Then what we want to do is you want to start basic and then get more advanced. So it's okay to start with just like a very, very small core of metrics and said like, hey, you know what? All things being equal, we're just going to pay attention to meetings to start if you're not very advanced in this regard. And then that's okay, right? Because if you look at this, if we only paid attention to customer facing meetings, we would have caught the fact that this person was going to have this problem, right? So with one single metric at the top of the flow, we would have been able to catch the fact that this person was struggling, right? Then what you want to do is look at the outcomes there and then tie that back to the leading indicators. I've done a bunch of classes on master classes on sales math. I'm not going to go into it in super in depth here, but suffice it to say there's a formula to success, and by looking at those leading indicators, you can do a bottoms up model to say, hey, are we progressing in the way that we should be doing there? And so this is an example of a metrics tree, right, where our outputs are over here, bookings, which come from wins, ASP, average deal cycle, which comes from win rate and attempts, and these other folks. And then the same thing you can do with SDRs as well there. And then you set goals on them and track progress towards these. So then the question is, how do we actually, once we have these things in place, how do we track success to these, and how do we change behaviors? And really what that comes down to is data-driven ramping one-on-one. So paying attention in those one-on-ones, not to, hey, how are your deals going? Hey, how are your deals going? Hey, how's the deals going, et cetera. But looking at those leading indicator metrics in order to say, are they at the place where we expect them to be? How are they pacing as compared to those other reps? So for instance, if this organization right here this manager right here had simply been paying attention to these metrics with Jane, even every 2 weeks, very quickly we would have seen that something was up, and we would have been able to investigate and do something about it. Right? We would have been able to have that conversation rather than putting our fingers in our ears. And so a couple of kind of key tenets here for one-on-ones is that you as the manager should own it. You should own the agenda and make sure that you're bringing to bear the things that are needed in order to have a productive one-on-one. And that means preparing for it, right? So preparing for it and then having the relevant materials that are needed. So in the case of a ramping AE, what that means is having those ramping metrics in place that we were kind of looking at previously, but then also spending 15 minutes beforehand, or maybe if you have a series of one-on-ones that day, spending like a half hour, an hour going through everybody's metrics in order to so that we know what the topic of conversation is when we come to that one-on-one, right? And then lastly, don't skip them, right? Like you can move them around, things get busy, et cetera, but like you can move one-on-ones, but don't skip one-on-ones, right? Because if you skip, especially in a ramping situation, if you skip ramping one-on-ones, you end up in this situation right here, right? Even if you have data-driven instrumentation in place, if you skip things, that's how you end up in a situation like this with a busted rep, right? And so this rep by month 12 was supposed to have booked you $800,000 in bookings, and instead when you fired them in month 9, right, they had gotten you $50,000 in bookings, and you would have been way, way ahead of that had you been consuming this, had you been paying attention to that, having those data-driven conversations with your reps. It's just kind of some examples here of what a one-on-one agenda might look like. you look at the outstanding items for last week's one-on-one where you had a conversation. And this is actually where 5 Secrets of a Sales Coach is really fantastic. Talks about the coach framework, COACH. I forget exactly what it stands for, but it's all about like having recurring topics that you're focused on. So hey, what was the thing that we said we were going to talk about last time? Oh, you were light from a ramp standpoint of customer facing meetings. We said that you were going to spend 4 hours last week prospecting. Cool. Let's look and see if that actually happened and if it positively impacted the meeting volume that you're supposed to have. Okay. Right. We could look at closed deals. We could look at sales activities, etc. Some kind of pro tips for a highly productive one-on-one. You could create a shared Google Doc that serves as a living agenda. In fact, actually, I have a example of that here. You could include links to supporting materials in your calendar invite, and you could ensure to block time on your calendar for prep and follow-up. And so in summation, really like the key to making sure, and a lot of us are hiring reps or have reps that are in ramp right now, really the key, the thing I would love to leave you with is that the key to successful ramp, right, data-driven ramp is to focus in on those leading indicators such that you can intervene where there are potential issues and ensure that you're spending your time on the reps that need help and not on the ones that don't need help, and then moreover able to take action while things are, like, as we like to talk about, solve issues before they become problems. And then moreover, if something continues to be an issue and keeps growing, at least you're ahead of it, and you can move that rep out in month 4, month 3, month 4, month 5, rather than hoping against hope, even as they're not coming into band with your successful, or like with your investment in them, rather than hoping against hope until month 9, 10, 11, and 12, right? Because like that's just bad. Like you're missing all those bookings. You're like, that rep is sitting in a seat for another rep. They're using opportunities and leads that marketing spends good money and SDR firepower on. Like they're squandering those leads. And so this is why it's so important to be paying attention to those leading indicators so we can see when somebody's not having success and we can intervene and try to solve it. Or alternatively, if those solutions are not working, we can move them out of the organization. Cool. So that's the presentation here. Appreciate you guys taking the time. We will be sending out the recording after the fact. If you are interested in getting a copy of these various books on sales management, 5 Secrets of the Sales Coach, Crushing Quota, the Qualified Sales Leader, and this really sweet Yeti, Coffees for Closers Yeti, go ahead and hit the link in the chat right there, and you can sign up for that. But otherwise, I hope folks enjoyed that. I think there's some opportunities for kind of like tuning up some of this presentation, but I had a lot of fun. Hey Taylor, how are you doing?
Hi, I'm good. I learned a lot. Thank you so much, Pete. Thank you, Atrium. Thank you to the folks who were so active in the chat and joined us for this afternoon chat. Ooh, I used chat twice. Remember not to go too fast or too furious with your ramping, and have a great day, everyone. Bye.